The Mystery of BELICENA VILLCA. Second Book. The Letter of BELICENA VILLCA. 44th Day. General Synthesis of the Hyperborean Wisdom. The aforementioned complementary concepts have manifested the fact that a law of the nature originates in some relations that the rational judgment establishes between significant aspects. My objective is to clarify that even if some aspects really belongs to the phenomenon, the relation that gave place to the eminent law has been created by the reason and in no way can be attributed to the phenomenon itself. The reason, based in the preeminent cultural premises, uses the world as a representation, or projective model in such way that any phenomenon expresses its correspondence with an equivalent intellectual conception. In this way men make use of rational concepts of the phenomenon which keep a faint implication with the phenomenon itself, with its truth. When we perform the reasoning, or analysis based in those concepts, we fall in a mistake, and the result can't be other than the gradual immersion in confusion and irreality. This effect is searched by the enemy, I said it. We will see later what we can do to avoid it, using what the Hyperborean wisdom teachings. When we talked before about the Hermetic principle, I said that all the laws of the macrocosm are reflected in equivalent laws in the microcosm. But the laws of the nature of the macrocosm are just representations of a mathematical model originated in the human mind, it means, in the microcosm, as I have analyzed. In the process that takes us to the scientific idea of a phenomenon converges elements of two main sources: the mathematical principles, and the preeminent cultural premises. The mathematical principles are archetypical, come from inherited psychological structures. When we learn mathematics, for example, we just consciously update a finite number of formal systems that belong to the cultural ambit, but the mathematical principles are not really learned, but they're really discovered, because they are basic matrices of the brain structure. The preeminent cultural premises appeared from the totality of the cultural elements learned along our lives, which act as a content of the systems of the cultural structure and that the cultural subject uses to formulate judgments. The distinctions that I have made between mathematical principles and the preeminent cultural premises as two main sources that intervene in the mental act of formulating a law of the nature, will allow to expose one of the most effective tactics that the Creator uses to maintain the mankind in confusion, and how the loyal gods counteract it, charismatically inducing mankind to discover and apply the principle of the enclosure. For this reason, I have harshly insisted in the analysis, because we are in front of one of the most important principles of the Hyperborean wisdom, and also one of the most hidden secrets by the enemy. When someone knows the principle that says for the Cynici, the culture is a strategic arm, it is usually thought that it refers to the culture as something external, common of the behavior of the man in the society and of the influence that exerts. This error comes from the incorrect understanding of the Cynici, that is assumed just as a politic organization, and the role that it takes in a terrestrial Jehovah-Satan demarriage plan. The truth is that man tries to orientate himself to the origin, but doesn't achieve it, because of the confusion state in which he lies. To keep him in that state contributes the culture as an enemy strategic arm. But, if this attack only proceed from the exterior, it means the society, it would just necessary to move away from it, to become an hermit, to neutralize their effects. But, it has been sufficiently proved that loneliness is not enough to avoid the confusion, and that, on the contrary, this usually increases in the most hermetic retirement, being very probable that in this way someone finds insanity before the origin. The internal cultural elements are what confuse, deviate, and go with men in every moment. It is for that reason that the awake self must release itself before from the obstacle that the cultural elements impose on it, if it pretends to save the distance that separates it from the origin. A self free from every moral, from every dogma, indifferent to the world deceits, but open to the memory of the blood, will be able to march gallantly to the origin, and there will be no force in the universe capable to stop it. It is a beautiful image of the man, who advances intrepidly, involved in a warrior furore, and demons incapable to stop him. We will always present it. But, you will wonder, how is possible to obtain such grade of purity? Because the normal state of the humanity in this phase of the Kali Yuga is the confusion. I will explain now, in answer to that reasonable question, the tactic of the loyal gods to orientate the spiritual man and neutralize the effect of the synarchic culture. In the asleep man, the self is conditioned to the reasoning. It is the rudder that guides the course of its thoughts, from which for nothing in the world he would separate. Out of the reason are the fear and madness. But the reason originated from cultural elements. We already seen in what way the preeminent cultural premises participate in the formulation of a law of the nature. In such way that the yoke that the enemy has girded around the self is formidable. It can be said, in a figurative sense, that the self is prisoner of the reason, and their allies, the cultural premises, and everyone would understand the sense of this figure. That is because exists a clear analogical correspondence between the self, in the asleep man, and the concept of captivity. For that reason I will elaborate later an allegory, in which will become evident the correspondence indicated, what will allow then, to understand the secret strategy that the loyal gods practice to counteract the cultural arm of the synarchy. I will start presenting the allegory focusing the attention in a man who has been taken prisoner and condemned, in an unappealable way, to life imprisonment. He doesn't know this sentence. He doesn't even know any information subsequent to his capture from the external world, because it has been determined to maintain him indefinitely uncommunicated. To achieve this he has been confined in an inaccessible tower surrounded by walls, abysms and pits, where apparently results impossible any attempt to escape. A garrison of enemy soldiers, with who is not possible to talk without receiving some punishment, they are permanently guarding the tower. They are cruel and ruthless, but terribly loyal and efficient. Not even think to suborn or deceive them. In this condition doesn't seem to be many hopes in the freedom of the prisoner. However, the real situation is very different. Even though, outside of the tower the exit is prevented by the walls, pits and guards, from inside it is possible to go out directly to the exterior, without stumbling with any obstacle. How? Through a secret exit, which access is skillfully dissimulated on the floor of the cell. Naturally, the prisoner ignores the existence of this passage, but the guards ignore it too. Let's suppose now that, just because the prisoner has been convinced that it is impossible to escape, or just because he ignores his captive condition, or by any other motive, the prisoner doesn't shows feud predisposition. Doesn't he shows bravery, or courage, and, of course, doesn't seeks the way out. He is simply resigned to his precarious situation. Undoubtedly, is his own negative attitude the worst enemy, because, if he would keep alive the escape desire, or even, if he just could feel the nostalgia of his lost freedom, he would move around his cell, where exists, at least, one possibility in a million to find the secret exit by accident. But has not, and the prisoner, in his confusion, has adopted a placid behavior that, after months and years of incarceration, becomes more and more pusillanimous and idiot. Surrendered to his luck, the captive just would wait for an external help, which can only consist in the revelation of the secret exit. But it is not simple to expose the problem, because the prisoner doesn't want to escape or doesn't know that he can, as I said. There must be two things accomplished. First, make that the prisoner assumes his captive condition, and if it is possible, make him remember the golden years, where there were no cells, and no chains. It is necessary to him, to become aware of his miserable situation, and that he ardently desires to escape, previously too. Second, reveal him the existence of a unique possibility to escape. Because it would be enough, now that the prisoner wants to escape, just to know about the existence of the secret exit. he will search for it, and he will find it, by himself. Presented in this way, the problem seems to be very difficult to resolve. It is necessary to reanimate him, to wake up him from his lethargy, to orientate him, and then reveal him the secret. For this reason it is time to wonder, is there anyone disposed to help the miserable prisoner? And if it exists, how would he arrange to comply with the two conditions of the problem? I must declare that, fortunately, there are other people that love, and try to help the prisoner. They are who participate of his ethnicity, and dwell in a very farther country, which is at war with the country that incarcerated him. But they can't attempt any military action to release him, due to the retaliation that the enemy could take over the countless captives that, in addition to the tower, maintaining their terrible prisons. So, it tries to guide the help in the aforementioned way, to wake up, orientate and reveal the secret to him. To do this, it is necessary to get to him, but how can we do this, if he has been incarcerated in the heart of a fortified citadel, saturated of enemies in permanent alert? It must be discarded the possibility to infiltrate a spy, due to the insuperable ethnic differences. A German would not be able to be infiltrated as a spy in the Chinese army in the same way that a Chinese would not be able to spy in the SS barracks, without the possibility to enter in the prison, or to deceive the guards. Only remains the resource to send a message to the prisoner. However, to send a message seems to be as difficult as introducing a spy. In effect, in the improbable case that a diplomatic management achieve the authorization to present the message and the promise that this would be given to the prisoner, that would not be useful at all, because just fact that it has to pass through 7 security levels, where it would be mutilated and censored, make absolutely vain this possibility. Moreover, by this legal route previous authorization would be imposed the conditions that the message be written in a clear language, and accessible to the enemy, who then would censure part of its content, and would impose the terms to avoid a possible second encrypted message. And don't we forget that the secret of the occulted way out interests us to be recognized by the prisoner, but at the same time to be ignored by the enemy. And the first, what to send enemy a message to achieve the awake, orientation, and the comprehension of the prisoner that he must escape. As much can we think on that it will make evident that at the end the message must be clandestine, and that the same can't be written. Neither can be optic, because the small window of his cell allows to watch only one of the internal courtyards, where rarely arrives signs from the exterior of the prison. In the conditions that I exposed, doesn't results evident, undoubtedly, in which way can his cameraden give solution to the problem, and help the prisoner to escape. It may become clear if we have present that, even by all the precautions taken by the enemy, they didn't achieve to isolate it acoustically. To do so, they would have to take him, like Gasparhausen, in a soundproof cell. I will show now, as an epilogue, the chosen way, by the cameraden to give effective help. A help that first, awake and second, reveal the secret to the prisoner, orienting him to the freedom. At the moment to decide for an acoustic way, to send the message to the prisoner, the cameraden understood that they had a great advantage. The enemy ignores the original language of the prisoner. It is possible then to transmit the message simply, with no double sense, taking advantage that the same will not be understood by the enemy. With this conviction the cameraden made this. Many of them climbed to a nearby mountain and, using an enormous conch, which allows to amplify tremendously the sound of the voice, they started to emit the message. They made this continuously, for years, because they had sworn to not abandon the attempt until the last prisoner be free again. And the message descended from the mountain, crossed the fields and rivers, traversed the walls and invaded up to the last corner of the prison. The enemies at the beginning were surprised, but, due to that language doesn't mean nothing for them, they'd taken the musical sound for a song of a fabulous bird, and farther, and at the end they finished to accustom to it and they forgot it. But, what does it said? It consisted in 2 parts. First, the cameraden sang an infantile song. It was a song that the prisoner had heard. Many times in his childhood, there, in the golden homeland, when the dark days of the war, and the perpetual captivity only, could be a nightmare impossible to dream. Oh, how sweet memories evoke that melody! What spirit, even how asleep it is, would not awake, feeling eternally young, hearing again the primordial songs, those which were spellbound listened in the joyful days of the childhood, and that, unknowing how, were transformed in a mysterious and ancient dream? Yes, the prisoner, even how asleep could be his spirit, even if the oblivion locked his senses, he will finally awake, and remember. He would feel the nostalgia at the farther homeland, he would understand that, only who have an infinite courage, with an unlimited intrepidity, can realize the achievement of the fugue. If such were the feelings of the prisoner, then the second part of the message will give him the key to find the way out. You must have present, that I said the key, and not the secret exit. Because it happens that, with the key the prisoner must search for the secret way out, work that would not be so difficult considering the reduced dimensions of the cell. But, after he find it, he must complete his feat descending through incredible depths, across the corridors mired in impenetrable shades and going up, finally, to remote pinnacles, such complicated as the travel of the enigmatic secret exit. However, he is saved, in the same moment, that you begin the return, and nothing and nobody will stop him. Now, it is only missing, to complete the epilogue of the allegory, to say one word about the second part of the acoustic message, the part that had the key of the secret. It was also a song, a curious song that narrated the story of a sublime and forbidden love between a knight and a lady already engaged. Consumed by a passion without hope, the knight had started a long and dangerous journey, across distant and unknown countries, in which he was becoming skilled in the art of the war. At the beginning he tried to forget his beloved, but, after many years, and having proved that the memory was always alive in his heart, he understood that he would live eternally slave of the impossible love. So, he made a promise to himself. Wouldn't matter the adventures that he would have to pass, in his long journey, neither the joys or misfortunes that they would implicate. Internally he would stay loyal to his beloved, with no hopes with a religious devotion, and no circumstance would take him at part of his strong devotion. In this manner the song ended, remembering that in some part of the earth, converted in a monk warrior, the courageous knight marches, provided with powerful sword, and proud courser, but, keeping hanged on his neck a bag that contains the proof of his disgrace, the key of his secret of love, the wedding ring, that will never be used by his lady. Adversely to the infantile song of the first part of the message, this doesn't produce an immediate nostalgia, only a feeling of modest curiosity in the prisoner. When hearing, coming who knows from where, in his natal ancient language, the story of the gallant knight, so strong and brave, so full in battle, and however so sweet and melancholic, so internally broken, due to the memory of elev, a merit, in Spanish, that is to say, a means without, and merit means death, meaning without death. The captive felt damn of that modest curiosity that the children experience when they presage the promises of sex, or intuit the mysteries of love. We can imagine the prisoner brooding, befuddled, due to the enigma of the evocative song. And we can suppose, also, that he will finally find a key on that wedding ring, which according to the song would be never used in any wedding. Inductively, the idea of the ring will make him search and find the secret exit. Hitherto the allegory. We must now stand out the analogic relations that attach the prisoner to the self of the asleep man.